Now we're going to bring you our prospective guest on the programme. And my guest today is a woman with a remarkable story, a story with a happy ending for her personally, but one that has led her to campaign and fight for others in a similar position. Noor Azizah is a Rohingya refugee, her family fleeing the genocide of the Rohingya people in Myanmar after facing perilous conditions such as navigating thick jungles and enduring hunger. At the age of 8, her family resettled in Sydney. Her early life, she admits, still full of a sense of hopelessness. Now, though, well, she's become a strong voice for the Rohingya, notably for women as well. She's now co-founder and director of Advocacy International Relations and Women's Leadership at the Rohingya Maiyafuinor Collaborative Network, and she joins us now from Sydney. Thanks very much for being with us, first of all, on the programme. Great to have you with us. I'd like to start by talking about the life you had before the age of 8. I mean, what do you remember? What have you been told about what happened to you and your family?
So in the 90s, there were waves of violence against the Rohingya. Given the Rohingya genocide started in 1942 and remains active till today, it's been 81 years of our active genocide. Given that there were violence in the 90s, my family and I, my 2 older brothers, 2 older sisters, and myself and my siblings, my parents, we had to flee. We left the village of Mongdo Township and we took every boat possible. We walked through the jungles of Southeast Asia. We navigated extremely life-threatening experiences, and we ended up on a small island in Malaysia called Sabah. And in Malaysia, we were hoping for our lives to be much better and much more enhanced, but it was a complete hell. I spent 90% as a child hiding in the jungles of Malaysia, and I lived as a refugee in Malaysia for 8 years and a half. I didn't have any access to education. Accessing medical facilities were extremely difficult, and we spent a lot of our times hiding from police and making sure that we weren't going to be arrested. But we had the help of very kind locals and very kind Malaysians that helped us with medical needs, food, and so on. But in 2003, my life completely changed, and we resettled in Australia. I was able to go to school. I started school in grade 3.
So when you, can I just interrupt you for a second? When you think about that period in your life before you got to Sydney, what emotions are stirred up in you?
It was a mixed emotion when we came to Australia. Beforehand, in Malaysia, we knew that being Rohingya was not safe. We were so afraid to speak our language. We were so afraid to even say the word Rohingya. And things has not changed in Malaysia. It has been worse given the hate and the xenophobia that is currently spiralizing in the region. Coming to Australia, obviously we felt the freedom. We were able to speak our language. We were able to be a family. We were able to practice our culture, our language, and be with our very small Rohingya community in Sydney. But we knew that our freedom was not complete. Our freedom is only complete when our people are all free.
Yeah, in the meantime, the situation has perhaps got even worse for the Rohingya. Of course, in 2017, 700,000 Rohingya were pushed out of Myanmar into Bangladesh by the military. Many people raped, tortured, traumatised as well.
In 2017, Operation Clearance, the name says it all. Operation Clearance was to wipe Rohingya away, which caused a mass displacement of 700,000 Rohingya refugees. And right now, it's about 1.3 million Rohingya. And the situation in Bangladesh remains extremely dire, where Rohingya are making choices where they have to embark on life-threatening boat journeys. First, we saw men making these journeys, but now we're seeing more women and children. It was only about 3 weeks ago where a boat was capsized in Aceh, about 151 Rohingya. We were only able to rescue about 75. And the next couple of days, we had to see bodies of mostly women, babies, and children that were found floating, but they weren't met with love and kindness. They were met with hate. So we had many locals going to where the refugees were living, screaming and telling them to go back home, and not understanding the situation back home is inviting ourselves to death.
And you've obviously turned your attention to try to help people. You're there in Sydney. How are you actually able to do that? Because obviously you're not on site.
So I'm the director and co-founder of Rohingya Maiyafuinor Collaborative Network. We comprise of 5 Rohingya women genocide survivors, including myself. We were all displaced in ASEAN. 2 are based in the US, 1 is based in Canada, and another one is based in New Zealand. So we do the work as a collective. We speak the languages of ASEAN. We belong in ASEAN, and we have the right to for our rights for ASEAN to speak up for us. We do go on mission. We've been on mission to Aceh, Indonesia last year in August, where we visited our brothers and sisters residing in PD camp, housing 151 Rohingya, and where we advocated for around 81 children to retrieve some form of formal education. And a couple of months ago, we also went to Malaysia on mission to work on combating the hate and xenophobia that is currently spiralizing in the region, and which is also manifesting to physical violence that Rohingya refugees are facing in the region.
Yeah, you're trying to help particularly, don't you, women in this situation?
Yes, our focus is on women and children. And the reason why we focus on women and children is because we often become a blind spot. When we went to Malaysia recently, we met with our women, and they spoke about gendered issues that they would not feel comfortable speaking about with a man. Some of the issues that they were speaking about were the lack of access to medical facilities. One story they told us was of a Rohingya woman that was heavily pregnant, ready to give birth. She went to the clinic, and the clinic asked her for 5,000 ringgit as a deposit for her to give birth. She obviously didn't have that kind of money, and we cannot expect Rohingya refugees to have an ample amount of money on their hands. So she was left in front of the clinic, and her unborn child passed away. And this is just one of many Rohingya stories that are currently happening in Malaysia. Of course, we are not a flawless community. We acknowledge that, given the 81-year genocide has pushed our people to the brink of survival. However, when resources are not provided, it creates a cycle of poverty. It limits jobs and stops children from going to school or seeing a doctor.
And knowing, just interrupting you again for a second, in knowing what happened to you and hearing your story, how difficult is it for you to watch what happens to the Rohingya people from where you are?
It's extremely difficult and extremely heartbreaking. When we went to Malaysia, we showcased three of us were displaced in Malaysia. We weren't given the opportunities for education. Malaysia is not a party of the 1951 Refugee Convention, but Rohingya are already contributing to Malaysian society. We are doing the jobs under extreme condition with very low pay. I myself, as soon as I resettled in Australia, I have been able to retrieve 2 degrees from the University of Sydney. Hafsa, she resettled in New Zealand, and now she's a CEO of a refugee rights organisation, and she was displaced in Malaysia for a very long time. Noor Hayati, as soon as she was resettled in Chicago, she became an engineer. So when we are given the resources, we can make the meaningful contribution to the society that we are in.
Great to hear those positive stories to end it in a very difficult situation as well, of course. I mean, I know that you yourself were awarded a Global Citizen Youth Leader Award for 2024 as well. So congratulations for that. And thanks very much once again, Noor Azizah, Rohingya refugee, talking to us there live from Sydney. Thank you very much.